about a heaven in Alberta, where they've got all hell for basements. Yeah, I lost my way, but I hear tell about a heaven in Alberta, where they've got all hell for basements.
Hi, everyone. Frankie here, New West Reset. Hello. Welcome back, and thank you very much for shooting in, joining a fella here for another one, another live stream. New West Reset Live. Episode 76 today, this evening, this afternoon, this morning. I don't know. Hello, howdy. Welcome. Where are we at here? Well, it's Friday, July 26th. Just a little bit past 5 p.m. local time. That's mountain time, don't you know? Here locally, Calgary, up here in Canada land, eh? So how's she going there, eh? How you doing there, eh, buddy? Lovely day today, which is contrary to the past week and a half or so. Maybe 2 weeks, but in the last week and a half, it was a downhill slide into mayhem here in terms of air quality, and that's kind of the topic of the show. Jasper destruction, New West Reset Live, episode 76. Jasper here in Alberta as well, one of the mountain parks in the Rockies, north of where I am. Banff is basically due west of a guy, right? From where I live here in Calgary. You're in southwestern Alberta, Purdy, Alberta. But if you go to Edmonton, about 3 hours north, about 300 clicks, if you will, north, the capital city here in Alberta, Edmonton, right? You head due west from there, basically, you get to Jasper. It's lovely up there. Lovely. Not so lovely now. Forest fires all over the place. Yeah, we had a lot of heat here. Weather-wise, it was into the high 30s, mid to high 30s here last week and earlier this week. That's, like in the 90s Fahrenheit there, eh? So that she's hot. But then with those forest fires, we've had smoke, and it was so bad. It was basically blocking out the sun. It was more than hazy. It was like a foggy evening. You know what I mean? It was bad. But the wind picked up. There were some rain showers scattered here or there, briefly. But it's windy as hell today, so I think that's helping to blow the smoke away. But it's probably not helping the fires. Right? We need some rain, eh? She's rough, but it's cooled off. The wind has made it it's cooled down. It's like 22 degrees here today. It's like mid to low 70s Fahrenheit, so it's a welcome break because she was hot out there, eh? So, okay, I'm done with the stereotypical Canadian pissing and moaning about the weather. Let's say howdy to everybody in the box. Shoot in there. Let me know how you're doing. Say hello in the chat. Awakening Soldier is here. Yes, he's got on his channel. Go to his homepage. Playlist. He's got a couple there. A climate Climate War 101 or something like that. I'm sorry. It's, you know what? Let's let me just have a look-see instead of just blabbering on about it like some kind of knucklehead. It's Weather Warfare 101. Yes, there it is. Here it is. Let's just do this. Let's just copy and paste that in the chat for everybody so they can have a looky-loo there, eh? There we go. Here we go. Marit is here, hidden in plain sight. Speaking of channels, excellent Old World Tartaria channel. I'm over in the Netherlands, you know. Phil Henry is here. Howdy, Phil. Good to see you. I looked into that thing you sent me. That was one of the craziest things I've ever seen. I'm like, wait, what? It's crazy. Jesse Nick's in the box. Howdy, Jesse. Good to see you. Look at this. Western Australia's in the house. Sue Spectacular. Welcome, Sue. Good to see you. Thank you very much. Happy weekend to you. Old World Michigan, old friend of the channel's here. Howdy. Hippie Shake in the box. Good to see you, Hippie. Turtle's here. Good to see you, Title. Old World Meek Mock is here as well. Howdy. What's happening? What's happening, baby? What's going on? Quay meetup. Quay. Well, speaking of Down Under, Vaughn is here. Howdy, Vaughn. Howdy. Headleyman BC in the box as well. How's she going there, eh? Yeah, man. Forest fires everywhere. British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan. It's brutal. Yo. How's she going there, eh, bud? 160 forest fires in Alberta alone, in Purdy, Alberta alone. It's rough. Esther 12 in the box. A local. Well, howdy. How's she going there, eh, bud? Local Calgary. It's always nice. It's fantastic, as a matter of fact. Cousin Vinny's here. Cousin Vinny in the box. Howdy. So yeah, welcome. Thanks everybody for shooting in, joining me here. If you haven't already, give a fellow one of these. Be nice. Or one of these. It's fine. Just kind of helps to push me out into the thing, you know. Thank you to everybody who's already subscribed and shared and all that good stuff. And a hearty howdy to everybody who's watching this thing after the fact, after the live. Welcome. Thank you very much for shooting in. Appreciate your support as well. And as per usual, links below for everything we're going to be covering here tonight in the description box, as well as how you can get a hold of a guy. Like if you're a local, for example, and you want to join on a meetup or the next meetup or what have you. Or if you want to reach out because, I don't know, you got some cool old photos or something you want to share with a guy. My email is there. You can also reach me on my MeWe page. And of course, we got the BitChute down there. My location map that Cousin Vinny put together. Got the link for my Rumble there, the fighting platform. We're broadcasting simultaneously live there as well. So howdy to everybody on the YouTubes, on the Rumbles. The Rumbles is. And if you care to throw a guy some shiny pennies, PayPal there as well. So, yeah, there you go. Thank you. Howdy. So it's Friday. Welcome. Thanks for kicking off your weekend here with Frankie, New West Reset. yes, and that's kind of the whole idea, right? I mean, these we hear about these fires, right? And they're very, very, especially as of late, very suspicious, right? And it's not just here in Canadian land, right? It's not just here in the New World in North America. You know, I mean, just off the top of my head, in the last 5 years, we had California a couple times, as well as other parts of the United States, as per usual. You know, here in Canadian, right? Saskatchewan, Alberta, British Columbia, England, which seemed odd and rare to me, but apparently is, as of late, again, is not so strange. Australia, speaking of down under, the land of Oz, Hawaii, right? On and on and on. And it's pretty terrible. It's pretty terrible, but it's very suspicious. Very suspicious. Make America green again in the box. Howdy, howdy. You said 'em, we wet 'em. Traditional firefighter slogan. Well, let me tell you, thank the good Lord above for the smoke jumpers. These are those firefighters that, you know, fly in over forest fire zones that are really, really isolated. And they, you know, they jump out of the planes and parachute down in there and put out the fires. Woo wee. Yes, see? And if it's not fires, it's floods, right? Like, I mean, you know. And I think some of these have the makings for what, you know, was going to go down in the history books 100, 200 years from now, in the official his story as, you know, the great fire of this, that, or the other. Because looking back, every city, every town, and I say every, you know, it's maybe a little bit as I don't know, an exaggeration, but not by much. I mean, I think it's a pretty small percentage of city or town that you would look up in their history that has not had some kind of terrible fire. It may not be coined as the Great Fire of, I don't know, Crescent City, so and so, or wherever, but you know what I'm getting at here, right? I mean, this particular one in Jasper, the town of Jasper, here in Alberta, that we're going to be covering specifically here on the show, it may not ever go down in history as the Great Fire of Jasper, but judging by the headlines on the normie networks of news, I mean, it's terrible. It's a big deal. Yeah, and if it's forest fires, wildfires, bushfires, you know. And you know what? They're still trying to chalk it up to climate change and all of this global warming. Ocean levels are rising because the polar ice caps are melting, and the polar bears got no ice to float on up there. And even though there's polar bears walking around in Manitoba on dry land, but hey, you know, it's fine. Even though Prince Edward Island and a bunch of the islands out in the west here in Canada around Vancouver Island, they're still there. They haven't sunk into the ocean yet, but you know. See, they do stuff, and then they blame it on us. And then they can clamp down, right? It's that whole Hegelian dialectic. Right? Straws. You know, back in the old-timey days, straws were made out of paper. Then introduced the plastic straw. And for generations, we got used to the plastic straws. Oh, they went crazy with the plastic straws. And we loved them. We ate them up, right? Because there was no other alternative. They made the bendy straw, the curly Q coily straws, right? The straws with the little spoon built on the end so you could eat your slushy. Big fat straws so you can drink a milkshake without it getting stuck. Bubble tea straws. And for generations, like I'm talking, my grandparents used plastic straws for the soda pop down at the drugstore where the soda jerk would get you, a sarsaparilla or whatever, a cherry Coke, right? Now all of a sudden, hey, you assholes, look what you're doing to the world because you're using all these plastic straws. So now you got to use these paper straws. I don't recall us burning down the paper straw factories and building a bunch of plastic straw factories. That was them, they, right? Same thing with all this chemicals and crap they dump into the air and into the water. And then they point the finger at us and say, look what you people are doing to our beautiful world. No. I mean, I don't know about any of you out there, or those of you in the box or tuning in after the fact, but I don't own a plastics and chemical company. I don't have any stake in like Dow Corning Corporations or insert name of evil company here type. You know what I'm saying? Come on, man. Although I'm not going to lie, those curly straws were pretty fun. I mean, the bendy straws too. Oh, how's she going there, eh, bot? Team Heat in the box. It's Chassis going on about here. My goodness, I was standing outside a few weeks ago and heard an explosion. I ran towards the smoke, and one of the electrical boxes blew up. And because of the dry ground, it caught on fire and started spreading. What? Wowee! They were able to get here quick, half a mile. Then put it out. Lots of brush down here. Wowee. Caught fire. Yeah, okay, yeah. Yikes. Yikes. Yeesh. Yeah, well, I mean, it's very dry here, but it's pretty humid in parts of British Columbia. And you get tons of forest fires out there too. Like I said, 160. That's not just how many fires are going on Canada land. It's just in Alberta. And Alberta's roughly the size of Texas. So you got to factor in British Columbia, Saskatchewan. Northern Saskatchewan has lots of wooded area, same as actually all of northern Canada. But yeah, Ontario maybe doesn't get as much in the way of wildfires and forest fires as Alberta because of the humidity, maybe, so that could play a factor, right? Yeah. Yeah, Kentucky is sticky. Oh, jeez. Well, yeah, we see that in photos, right? Crazy. Foliage on the trees, but melted cars. So yeah, that's great. Terrific. So once again, thank you very much for shooting in and joining a fellow here. As you can see down there, it says New West Reset Live, episode 76 here, Jasper Destruction, on this Friday, July 26th. This is the final live stream on the Friday, starting August the 4th, which is Sunday, doing the old flipperoo, switching the live show to Sunday, and then moving the boots on the ground videos to the Friday. Because often I have to work on Friday, and I could be working until different times of the day. Sometimes I get a late start on the live show, and I don't like starting too late. See what I'm saying? Not too late. So starting on August the 4th, going to be flipping around the live show. So thank you for joining here for this this final edition of the Friday edition of the live show. And thanks for kicking off your weekend here, eh? All right, enough screwing around. Let's get into this thing here. Whoa, whoa. Really? That's big. Mm, mm. Yeah, yeah. Well, when our province is the size of an entire state in the United States, right? Now, Canada's big, right? I'm not trying to flex or nothing here, but Canada's pretty big. But what I suspect, with like you said, the suspicions is that I suspect that it's there's something wacky going. And let me share this something here. I may have shared this with everybody before, perhaps, but I suspect it's something like this. You know what I mean? I suspect. Now, it doesn't have to be that quote unquote high tech, some kind of weirdo robot dog like thing. It doesn't even have to be a drone. I mean, it could just be Asia's provocateur, backpacking it out into the woods and just, I ain't saying, I'm just saying. You see what I'm saying? Anyway, let's kind of have a look at what we're talking about over here now. When it comes to this area, I'm going to go to the Wikipedia, of course, just for shits and giggles, get the official story. We'll start with nope. We'll start here. Banff National Park. Why not? This is the area that we're talking about right here. So Jasper, did I say Banff? Excuse me. Jasper National Park in Alberta, Canada, is the largest national park within Alberta's Rocky Mountains. It's bigger than Banff, spanning 11,000 square kilometers or just around 4,200 square miles. It was established as Jasper Forest Park in 1907, renamed as National Park in 1930, declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1984. Its location is north of Banff National Park and west of Edmonton. The park contains glaciers, the Columbia Icefield, springs, lakes, waterfalls, and mountains. Of course, Indigenous First Nations peoples originally inhabited the area and hunted and fished in the area. The Nakota, the Cree, Jasper Lake found evidence of this going back to 8,000 BC. And it's amateur out here. Skipped way ahead. Sorry. I do that a lot, eh? Sorry about that there, eh? So, your usual wildlife, right? Elk, moose, deer, caribou. So in the 1790s, some trappers came in there. Then they kind of made nice with the indigenous peoples, started trading a little bit using the Athabasca River and so on, and Smoky River. Oh, old friend of the channel, David Thompson, came in there in 1810. That's after he passed through this here area. This guy really got around as a 19, 20, 21-year-old cartographer working for the Hudson's Bay Company. Anyways, he makes nice with a few tribes out here. Fur trade opens up, and then the usual, right? Jasper House was established in around 1813, the first location of Brule Lake, and then later on Athabasca River. Jasper House was destroyed in 1910, but it gave its name to both the national park and the town of Jasper within the park. Let's look at this is specifically what we're talking about here, the town of Jasper. I must have heard 2 or 3 separate fires surrounding this beautiful little mountain town. So it's a specialized municipality and town site in Western Alberta within the Canadian Rockies, Athabasca River, and the park. It was established in 1813. Jasper House was a fur trade outpost of the Northwest Company. That was the competitor to the Hudson's Bay Trading Company. So, Canada, our histories were built on the back of the beaver pelt trade, supposedly, there, on behalf of the crown. So there we go, and later the Hudson's Bay Company. And the York Factory Express trade route to what was then called New Caledonia, now British Columbia, and Fort Vancouver on the lower Columbia River. Jasper House was 35 kilometers north of today's town of Jasper. So the park was established in 1907. The railway siding at the location of the future town site was established by the Grand Trunk Railway in 1911, originally named Fitzhugh after a Grand Trunk vice president along the Grand Trunk's alphabet line. The Canadian Northern Railway began to service its Jasper Park station in 1912. So the trains started going in there pretty early on, 1911, 1912. And basically, the rest is history, right? People were able to get more easily into this beautiful wilderness, into the Rocky Mountains and the river, and have access to the lake, and just to enjoy the mountain splendor in the Canadian Rockies. Oh yeah, come on, man. I mean, it basically doesn't matter how far back you look in official history of the founding of Canada. Founding, right? The discovery of the coastline of what became Canada, by early explorers and so on and whatnot, right? It's basically always they just keep linking it to the fur trade, the fur trade, the fur trade. Even when they go back to some of the earliest explorers that tried to establish colonies here, right? Like the ones in northern Labrador and Newfoundland and northern Quebec. The Vikings that came over here before Columbus, back in the 10s and 1100s, so on and whatnots. Ultimately, what does the story lead back to? Well, they started trading some furs for some metal tools and stuff with the indigenous peoples. But then something happened, and there's some kind of miscommunication or communication problem, misunderstanding, a scuffle ensued, and then they start fighting each other. So then the Vikings had to hightail it out of here, right? But if you jump ahead a couple of hundred years, it's these fur trading companies, right? The Hudson's Bay Trading Company, the Northern Fur Company, so on and so forth, exploring in around Hudson's Bay, James Bay, and down the St. Lawrence River, and pushing deeper and deeper beyond the lines and the borders in Canadian land. Why? All because of fur. Okay. So yeah, it's, it is what it is. Neural Mass in the box. Howdy, howdy. Good to see you. Thanks for shooting in there, eh? Yeah, that's right. They ran out of beavers in Europe, so you got to get that precious beaver pelt. Anyways, let's have a quick look here. These aren't exactly 100% up to date, but I'm just bookmarked a couple of videos here, news reports from this first one from Global News Online. Let's just see what's what here. Just get everything set up. 1 second. Here we go. And this is Jasper wildfire. Up to 50% of town site may have been destroyed. Now, again, this is from yesterday, so July 25th in the morning, so a day and a half ago-ish. Oh, it was updated in the evening. Okay, there you go. So quick video here. No, I don't want cookies and stuff. Take off, eh?
24 hours for Jasper residents watching the blaze come down on their community.
The house is just burning, like burning without anybody, trying to put the house, fires out or anything. It's like, where was everybody?
This Jasper resident, Mel Dressler, did not leave the town until the early morning Thursday, witnessing the destruction firsthand.
It was very strange to see how it was that there was a fire in almost every single block.
The fire roared through the town much of Wednesday evening, damaging and destroying some neighborhoods, iconic landmarks, and businesses.
We're seeing potentially 30 to 50% structural damage. To give you some idea, I mean, you've seen the images as I have. We don't know particularly which structures have been damaged and which ones have been destroyed.
Mutual aid firefighters were called from across the province to help fight this blaze, and structural firefighters have continued to put in difficult work.
There was an enormous wind gust. That wind gust moved that fire 5 kilometers in probably less than 30 minutes with a wall of fire that was about 100 meters high.
There was heavy rain in Hinton throughout the day Thursday. However, fire officials noted the same can't be said for inside Jasper.
They did receive some rain. Reports in the area say there was rain on and off overnight, but it really wasn't sufficient in order to really make a humongous change there in the fire that they're dealing with. So this is still obviously a long-term firefight for now.
The heartbreaking video and images coming out of Wednesday's destruction is hitting hard for people who love to visit the town and the ones who call it home.
I speak to you today with profound sorrow as our community begins to come to terms with the devastating impacts of last night's wildfire that have simply ravaged our small, tight-knit mountain community.
Yeah, that's it's rough. It's rough. See what I'm saying? But yeah, like I mentioned a few moments ago, they flip everything, right? They always flip the narrative on its head. So they cause something and they flip it and point the finger at us, right? Yeah, good question. Welcome, by the way. Cool channel name. Good to see you. But yes, indeed. Mr. 12 raises a good thing here too. Vikings, VI Kings. Yes, 6 kings, 6 grandfathers, right? Mount Rushmore. I think I have another video here. Yeah, this is from the CBC. Again, links for everything in the description below. This one also from July 25th. I mean, not much has changed really. Right? Again, it's just pushing the narrative really that's going to be amped up and intensified. But the footage is going to be the same basically from, 16, 18, 24 hours ago until now, roughly. Howdy, Scott. Welcome. Thanks for shooting in, joining us here. And to all of you, thanks for joining me here. New West Reset Live, episode 76 here on the show. So this is, again, from the CBC. And again, links below for everything. CBC News online. Buildings in Jasper in ashes as monster wildfire spans 36,000 hectares. Potentially 30 to 50% structural damage. It's just this one's a little shorter, about a minute.
Okay, this lines up with the gas. We may need 1 or 2. So once I know, I'll let you know. Okay, sounds good. Okay, thanks, Blake. Nodwell goes down to the Petrocan and just waits there. All right, I'm on my way. Yeah, there's another water truck parked there, I think.
There's Mom and Dad's house.
I'm stepping away from the radio for about 5 minutes.
So yeah, there you go. That's a little bit of the footage of some of the devastation going on over there in the town of Jasper itself, right in the Jasper National Park, the mountain parks there, just northwest of a fella here in Alberta, up in Canada land, eh? It's it's again, I must reiterate, Jasper is absolutely no exception, but especially as of late. And a couple of days ago, when this whole thing kind of really started kicking off, I was at work and I asked a few coworkers, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 people that I worked with that I knew had lived in Alberta for a long time or were born in Alberta or British Columbia. And I said, I moved here in 1980 myself, right? From Montreal, Quebec. And I can remember as a young kid and then as a teen and even in my 20s in the 80s, 90s, there wasn't as many fires and they weren't as terribly destructive. They weren't as intense and huge or as many of them. Where it basically smoked out the skies, where if you look up instead of, this time of year, beautiful big blue skies and maybe some white fluffy clouds, maybe some wispy clouds, maybe no clouds, to where you look up and all you see is gray, silvery gray from the smoke of the fires, and you can't distinguish between sky and cloud when you look up. 50, 60 yards away, it looks, all the houses, buildings look foggy. If I look out my bedroom window, I can see the downtown core easily. But that day, I couldn't see any of the skyscrapers. And that's only about, 2-3 miles from where I live. Maybe not even. 2 miles maybe is more accurate. But I don't remember this in the 80s, 90s, even the early 2000s. Every summer, almost like clockwork. First the tornadoes got to come in June and July. Then we get thunderstorms with hail. Hail sometimes as big as golf balls. And then it gets drier than a popcorn fart. So then all of a sudden now we just have these mysterious wildfires and forest fires through July, August, maybe even late into September. But anyways, pretty much everybody that I asked said, now that you mentioned it, yeah, I don't remember, when I was in my teens or in my 20s, this happening every year. Sure, there was forest fires and wildfires. Maybe every 5, 6, 7 years, there'd be a really bad one and it would be kind of smoky, but it wouldn't basically block out the sky and make it look like a really foggy, I don't want to perpetuate stereotype, but a foggy London sort of late afternoon. You know what I mean? Mysteries of the Realm in the box. Howdy. Howdy, howdy. Yeah, see, that's what I'm talking about. Cousin Vinny says, this business of major cities getting covered in smoke every summer is very new. Never happened my whole life until 2017. Yeah. Everybody at work said the same thing. Basically, they're like, yeah, I don't remember this. Not maybe in the last 5 to 10 years, but prior to that, not really. Not as often and not as bad and not as widespread and not as many in number, like 160 roughly right now. 160 in Alberta alone. And then the next thing most people said is, yeah, there's something fishy going on. There was a couple that said, well, it's climate change and it's really dry and there's extreme swings in the weather. It gets really, really dry really fast, and then he gets a couple of lightning strikes, and then it's fires. And it's because of the climate change. So yeah, I mean, there was a couple of people that did say that, but most people are like, nah, man, this is weird. This is weird. So, at the very least, more people, it seems to me, in my experience. Howdy, realm dweller. In the box, howdy, howdy. Over on the Rumbles, good to see you. But, it's just, at least more people are at least questioning it now more than ever before, right? But it's unfortunate that it has to get to this point where, then people are kind of shook. They're roused out of their slumber. Yeah, that's exactly it. We get choked out every year now with fires, whereas it was unheard of back in the day. But at the same time, then they're cutting down and clear cutting all kinds of forested areas, because now they got to make more paper straws because they're blaming us for the plastic straws that are choking dolphins in the oceans or whatever the hell they cockamamie. Gotta blame us, right? They gotta blame us, man. So once again, if you're just joining, thank you very much for shooting in. Frankie here, New West Reset. New West Reset Live, episode 76. Jasper destruction happening in real time. And in the history books, this eventually will become known as the Great Jasper Town Fire. That's not to say that there hasn't been previous fires in Jasper, like, individual buildings. There was an old hotel that burnt down. There's been other businesses and residences and so on over the years, of course, that have had fires, just like any other city or town. But also any other city or town, it seems, has some kind of great fire in their narrative. Calgary, here where I live, no exception. 1886. Coincidentally, suspiciously enough, sus enough, that same year the railroad came into town. Same year a certain feller who was mayor was also in charge of the fire department, who came from Chicago, moved from Chicago here to Calgary a few years after the Great Chicago Fire. He was a Freemason, a member of the Orange Order, by the name of George Murdoch. But that's a whole separate show. But I mean, that's just here in Calgary. Edmonton's got a great fire. You could find towns of 1,000 people, small little towns. Pretty much randomly throw a dart at a map of the realm. And any place over 1,000 or 2,000 people's had some kind of great fire that's destroyed, half their town or whatever. That's the narrative already for Jasper. And you heard the premier and other so-called officials, disaster and fire officials. They don't know for sure yet because the fire is still going. And already they're calling it at 50% structural loss in the town. Half the town gone. Well, that too, right? Careless campfire. Burn down half of the mountain. When really good, responsible campers are stewards of preserving beautiful, natural, forested areas and so on and so forth. That's why a lot of these national parks, at least here in Canada and Idialand, were started. It's from outdoor enthusiasts wanting to preserve them. Hikers, campers, hunters, fishermen. I camp and hunt and fish. hike and all that my own self. Last thing I want is to see this stuff disappear. I want to maintain it as pristine and intact as I can so I can keep going back and enjoying it. And other people can revel in the majestic beauty of these Canadian Rockies. By the way, if you're hearing a weird sound in the background, it's windy, so it's kind of rattling the guy's blinds here. Anyway. It's it's just very sus, as the kids would say. So, I don't know. All kinds of secretive forces at work. I would definitely agree with that. I would definitely read with that. My pal Bill is here. William Pals, thanks for shooting in. Good to see you. Good to see you. The other reason, too, that just to another point, to your point, Realm Dweller, is, they want to restrict more and more people from exploring the great outdoors because there's just inherent health benefits to just grabbing some trail mix and, a couple of canteens of water, throwing them in a pack, strapping on your comfortable hiking boots, and just going for a day hike. You leave early in the morning as the sun's going up. You come home in the evening. Health benefits. It's good for you. And it helps you appreciate the realm in which we live. It helps us to appreciate our meat suits. Right? And this existence in which we are in. Whatever your views on that existence might be. It's not really the point. Those who should not, the powers who should not be are, wanting to further and further restrict, right? So again, the blame game, right? Want to get us into all these smart cities. You're going to eventually have to have special permits issued by the government to go into still highly secured, restricted areas out in the great outdoors. Heck, you already got to pay to enter into the national parks. You got to have a park pass. They say that goes to pay for, maintenance and upkeep of the park and so on and so forth. But don't our taxes pay for that? Pretty sure that's, anyway, double dipping. No surprise there. So we're getting close to the halfway mark of the show here. As a reminder, this is the final Friday edition of the show. Starting next week, moving the show to Sunday. That will be August the 4th. So, thanks for joining me here for the final kickoff of the weekend. Next week will be winding down the weekend here with yours truly. So happy Friday to you. Happy Friday, as a matter of fact. If you're just joining me, perhaps consider giving a fellow one of these, helps to push me out as we make our way to 1,600 subscribers. Just recently had a 1,500 subscriber meetup. It was a lot of fun. We explored old-timey Inglewood here in Calgary. Actually, I used to live in that neighborhood, and it was great, and it was a beautiful day. That's when it was starting to get kind of hot, and that was a couple of weeks ago. The temperature just kept climbing, and then with the smoke from the forest fires, it just trapped that heat. We had a little bit of a breeze yesterday. It's pretty windy today. It's still a little smoky, but it's cleared a little bit. At least you don't get burning eyes and a sore throat going to the store to get get yourself a loaf of bread, a container of milk, and a stick of butter. You know what I'm saying? So as per usual, the one thing that has not changed is every Wednesday you're going to get some vintage footage videos here on the channel. This coming Wednesday, no exception. And every live show, a guy likes to give you a little bit of a sneak peek of what's coming up for the vintage footage. No exception here. Going to take a quick break, and I'm going to share with you, give you a peek at what's coming up here for this coming Wednesday. And this one is from 1924, Summer in Ontario. And what are we looking at here for this one? Yeah, it's about just over 3.5 minutes long. And I feel going to warn you ahead of time. This is an earworm, okay? I apologize in advance if this song gets stuck in your head for the next 3 or 4 days. But yeah, it is what it is. It's another toe tapper. So smoke them if you got them. Put on some headphones. 1924 Ontario Summer. And then after this, we'll be right back. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. Cheers.
Disappeared from the room. She asked me politely, may I put this lightly, the death that you thought was exhumed, it's buried beneath us. Since I wrote the thesis, I think I know better than you. Who taught you to live like that? Who taught you to live like that? Who taught you to live like that? Since I wrote the thesis, who taught you to live like that? Let's circulate freely, surrender completely, or wind up alone in the road. The light's getting brighter, the prize to the fighter, and now we got something to hold. And if it gets heavy, you can't keep it steady. Remember the things you've been told. Who taught you to live like that? 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 It's buried beneath us. Since I wrote the thesis, who taught you to live like that? Just died, who'll be the first to speak? The piano was upright, attendants were uptight, counting the days of the week. But round about midnight, your comments were highlights, the party spilled into the streets. Who taught you to live like that? Who taught you to live like that? Who taught you to live like that?
All right, welcome back. Who taught you to live like that? That's going to be your vintage footage coming up this Wednesday. Some 1924 footage of summer in Ontario. Some footage from Toronto, Ottawa, and up in cottage country in and around the Great Lakes, Lake Ontario, and other lakes nearby, eh? Beautiful part of the country out there. So once again, thank you very much for shooting in and joining a fellow here, New West Reset Live, episode 76. We're looking at in real time what eventually is going to become known as the Great Jasper Fire. And the first half of the show, the top of the show here, we kind of looked a little bit into the history of Jasper, the town, within the Jasper National Park, mountain parks here in the Canadian Rocky Mountains, up in sort of north central Alberta is Edmonton. West of that, Jasper Park and the town of Jasper. Beautiful. But, roughly half the town so far, at least by the official fear-mongering that they're throwing in our face from everywhere. Roughly half the town gone from a couple of fires, and there's roughly 160-ish fires just in Alberta right now. So yeah, they're very suspicious, as per usual, with fires that we've been seeing all over the realm in the last few years, excuse me. You know, California and Hawaii and down under and you know, in Australia and over in England and man, oh man, Hawaii. Did I say Hawaii? But yeah, you know what I'm talking about, man. Eesh. Oh, thank you. Awakening Solar says Frankie shares many great historical clips. Much respect back at you, my friend. Thank you. Yeah, I love finding old footage. And, you know, I try to keep it Canadian content around here or there, eh? Speaking of which, that song from a Canadian band called Sloan. And I think that's from their new album, actually. And they've been going for like, I don't know, 20 years or something like that. Yes, I would agree with that as well. Realm Dweller saying easier to control us in their shitty cities than being self-reliant country folk. Yeah, I would definitely go along with that. Vaughn saying, really enjoyed the boots on the ground of your local there, Frankie. Oh, appreciate that. Thank you very much. Yeah, every week you get a boots on the ground. I try to even it up pretty nicely here, on the channel. You know, every week you get a boots on the ground video. Every week you get some nice vintage footage stuff like that there that we just saw. I'm ridiculous, I know. But anyway. And of course, every week you get a live show. Because why? Well, because I enjoy spending time with you good people. And it's certainly my pleasure to get out there and explore my local, not only my local city here in Calgary, but the local area. If I can, you know, if I can get out and about, get around some other little towns and share it with you with some footage, a little bit of the wacky shenanigans that we might find in some of the local historical narratives. So yeah, I've got lots of boots on the ground videos. Got a nice one coming up for you this coming Sunday, which will be the final Sunday boots. After that, it's doing the flipperoo. Awakening Soul just says, peace, y'all. Head on swivel. Always have a wonderful, proactive weekend. You too. You take care out there, my brother. Take care out there. They're not going to catch that man in some shitty city. So what do you say for the remainder of the show here? We look at some old photos of Jasper. And I managed to go back and find some of the oldest photos of Jasper, going far enough back, actually, that it's that Jasper house, the old fur trading outpost log cabin, basically, that they say kicked off the whole thing and then kind of moves forward from there. If you see what a fella's saying. It's once again, thank you for joining me here. Let me cue up them photographs for you. It's not a huge file, unfortunately, but I've got about just over a dozen photos here. Then I found an interesting link, so we can wrap up the show with something that I kind of knew, but kind of sort of forgot. That makes any sense? That really doesn't make any sense at all. Who am I kidding? Let me just cue it up here for yous. Boy. Here we go. So as you can see, this from the Glenbow Museum here in Calgary, their archives, which is pretty good. Pretty good. So their photos tend to be really small, though, unfortunately. So when a guy tries to zoom in too much, it gets a little pickleated. So my apologies for that. But so this is the old, and by this point, it was no longer in use. It's the old outpost, the old Jasper house. It's a couple of the fur trading fellers here, of course. These guys actually were, these guys were prospectors for the railroad, and they were scouting ahead. And that's when they kind of knew that this was in the area. So there's the old trading post. So, of course, as per the narrative, right, then eventually a little town pops up around what used to be around there, right? I'm not sure what all this is, and it seems like there's already, or was already, something here, but I don't know. These pretty big structures that they oddly put way in the back of the photo, and in the foreground they just put this crap, so it's weird. But anyways, yeah, eventually a little town pops up, right? And of course the railroad comes in this case the Grand Trunk, later the Canadian North Canadian National Railroad. And of course then the Mounties come in, right? And they put some kind of outpost, because they got to protect the fur trading outpost. You see what I'm saying? So you got to have the Northwest Mounted Police, later the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the Mounties, the Dudley Do-Rights. They got to come out here and keep an eye on stuff. Tartarian prog rocker in the box. Howdy, howdy. Good to see you. Thanks a lot for shooting in there, eh? And then eventually, when things cool down and they, it's not such a crazy wild frontier anymore, then, the people start appreciating it for its natural beauty. And I have to admit, come on, man. Beautiful. So the tourists start coming in, right? So then, they start building hotels, Eventually a little town pops up, This one looking very rustic, almost log cabin-ish. Looks like at one point it may have been just a one-floor building, and then they added later on a second story, but yeah, sure. And this looks about right for some little town way out in the mountains. The railroad just barely has come in at this point. Jabberoo Joe, old friend of the channel in the box, says, I hitched from Banff to Jasper. Nice trip, really? Oh yeah, that would be beautiful, just traveling right up through the heart of the Rockies there. Absolutely gorgeous. But the funny thing is that you also get stuff like this. Way out here in this it's a township. It's not even a town or a little city or, this, sure. This, especially with these, is it me or does that look funny to anyone else? Stuff like that, right? And then you find buildings like this. Like, what the hell is this doing in this little town? This little mountain town. And it's still a little mountain town. course, you could see the setting, as Chassis mentions, just beautiful. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, it's gorgeous. I'm very lucky to live this close to the Rockies. Like an hour drive west for me. Heck, a guy could hop on the bus and get out there. I don't even have to worry about doing any of the driving myself. Like in this setting, isolated as it is, you know, you got stuff like this going on, this big, massive building. This looks to me like red brick. So where did all this brick come from? And then you have the stone. The stone, okay, I could see it being quarried in the Bloody Mountains are right here. The brick, as far as I know, there was no brickworks or brick factory in this little town. Arched windows here. And then these really suspiciously low windows that, again, are all different sizes. Like these ones are larger than these ones on the other side of the damn door. You see what I mean? They're all different sizes. Doesn't make sense. Yeah, I mean, once the railroad comes in, then they say, okay, the bricks could have come from Edmonton. But, I mean, some of these buildings look much, much older than 1911, 1912, you know? I mean, this may be okay, kind of a wooden frame, very traditional, looks kind of easy, but I mean, this is all stone or brick here. Looks perhaps stone to me. They say that this was built after it became a park so that they could have administrative offices. Not sure what the heck that is. I guess they'd say it's a weather vane, but again, all this stone. Look at the size of this thing for some park way out in the secluded Rockies. You can't really get there by road yet at this point, just by train. Or you could walk your ass in there like the prospectors and, you know, and all them did, or the indigenous peoples have been doing for thousands of years. There are certain towns and certain cities that I think are targeted at certain times for certain reasons and can't be allowed to maintain or keep up these appearances. This becomes, it starts to become harder and harder to explain stuff like this or stuff like this in these little secluded, isolated towns that never get much bigger than a couple of thousand people. And you know, the narrative on this is tourism and mining. So are they building these buildings or are they out in the mountains mining all day? And I think once more and more people, as I mentioned earlier, when it comes to the fires, are starting to call into question the official story of this stuff, it goes further. And they start looking at this and going, like, how did they do all this? How did they accomplish this kind of thing way out in the mountains and on such a grand scale? Why does this look so weird? Why does it look like the ground used to be here and then this thing was excavated and they found lower levels? And then they're like, oh, well, I guess we better put some stairs going up to what used to be a window and is now a door or something. I don't know. So once this stuff becomes harder to explain, whether it's Jasper or whether it's anywhere else in the realm, whoops, a flood or a fire. And you can see a lot of the stuff is stone. So then they get themselves into a double jeopardy because then they got to try to explain away how brick and stone buildings burn to the ground. But they just double down on it, right? Everybody knows they got the bricks from the mountains. They were made of bricks too. Well, I mean, kind of. kind of sort of joking, but kind of sort of, I mean, haven't we seen I Am Kairos? They're in San Francisco on the side of that big, it's a huge hill or a small mountain. And there's brick poking out of it. So, I mean, I don't know, right? I just look at stuff like this and go, what in the hell is going on here? Or has gone on here? Even, I think there used to be another one of these here. The Pyramid Motel, or hotel, by the way, hotel, named after Pyramid Mountain, which is in the area as well. How do you explain this? How do you explain a castle with all of this stuff and all of this extra time, effort, money, cost, resources? Not to mention these big blocks of stone and the weirdo sloping of the landscaping. Like, how do you explain this in this little town? And by the way, this church, I know for sure this has been destroyed in that fire. Some of the smoldering ruins that you see in the background and some of that footage is actually this structure. Could be. Well, they'll probably try to tell us the Masons built all this, you see. And again, you know, if you look at the upper floors of some of these and it's, you know, wood framed and maybe wooden siding, sure, okay. But, I mean, somebody built all this stone on the main floor and all this, what looks to be stone foundation here. So what happened? Did somebody stumble upon some old ruins and build on top of it? Because it's very, very hard to explain this kind of thing in little old Jasper, Alberta. Well, it's a railroad hotel. Well, I mean, that's the only thing that most people as a pill will swallow. Is once the railroad came in and tourism increased and it was easier for people to come in here and see this stuff, well, then the railroad built the hotels. With all these different levels and all of this sloping landscape and all of these giant stones and all of these turrets with domes on them, and you know, so yeah, this becomes pretty tough to explain. So rather than do that, they either it's got to be burned it down, or a tornado, or a flood, or it's condemned because it's unsafe, or they're opportunists. You know, there's an actual legit earthquake or something, and the building is damaged, and they go, "Oh, it's unsafe. We gotta wrecking ball it," or it's brutalized. You know, they put aluminum siding and all kinds of crap on it. They take off the tech, they take off all the towers and stuff, and they cover it up, you know, under the guise of modernizing it, making it easier to maintain and more cost effective. Yeah, so Awakening Soldier Sing Shriners, the Rotary, Freemasons. Yeah, you're driving in on, let's say, the Trans-Canada Highway, and you drive into some town or city, and they have the signs that say, "Welcome to Calgary," or whatever, right? "Welcome to Red Deer. Welcome to Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan." Population, whatever, what have you. You know, and maybe a couple of symbols for different things, like we have food and lodging and gas and a museum and a library, and then, yeah, ultimately there's the Rotary Club sign, the Lions Club sign, the IOF, right, the International Order of Foresters, the Shriners, the Rotary Club, the Freemasons, the Who's and what's nots. And yeah, basically lets you know this is who's calling the shots around here. Or this is the go-between, the middleman between who's calling the shots and us. But another thing too that's makes it easier for them to switch the narrative on places like Jasper, especially after they burn down, is they could just focus on one thing. And then Jasper becomes famously known for just one thing. So it could be something like, well, Marilyn Monroe filmed a movie back in Jasper at one time with Robert Mitchum. So then that's eventually that's it. Everybody looks at the one of the most beautiful women ever captured on film, and they go, "Oh yeah, Marilyn Monroe, Jasper, the beautiful mountain town. Yeah, Robert Mitchum, I remember that." Or, "Ooh, I gotta go and look at that movie. I didn't know Marilyn Monroe went up to Canada land. Whenever was Marilyn Monroe up in the Canadian Rockies?" I'm going to admit to you, I didn't even ever know that. Even moving here to Alberta after I moved here. And look at all this crap in the background here, this old camera, these old books and binoculars and old records. I like old crap. I like old movies. I like old records. And I didn't know that Marilyn Monroe filmed a movie in Jasper with Robert Mitchum. But if you have something like that, everyone, ooh, Marilyn Monroe, then it becomes real easy after a while, right? And Jasper becomes known for it's a mountain town, and Marilyn Monroe filmed a movie there once. And again, this was completely new to me. This is from Jasper Fitzhugh.ca, Fitzhugh News. Our Jasper stories, Jasper remembers Marilyn Monroe. By her chauffeur, Ralph E. Schultz, Marilyn Monroe spent 3 weeks in Jasper in the summer of 1953. Jasper Yellowhead Museum and Archives photo, Mark S. Schultz. Marilyn Monroe spent 3 weeks in Jasper in the summer of 53. There she is goofing around on the train. Hello, lady. As a young man, my dad, Ralph E. Schultz, arrived in Jasper by rail in May of 53 and walked across Connaught Drive into the nearby park office and asked the national park official if there were any jobs available. "Hi, I just got off the train. Got any jobs?" He's lucky they didn't pull a First Blood Rambo Part 1 and just run him out of town. "Get out of here, you transient hobo bum." So, of course, the park official asked him, "Can you drive a bus?" "No, but I have driven a truck." "Close enough." So, of course, they need drivers. Go see our tour bus manager at the Athabasca Hotel. Next day, he had a job driving tourists in the very first Volkswagen passenger buses in Western Canada. Yeah, the Volkswagen bus, which is a Westphalia, but with extra windows on it. It's kind of a cool looking machine. I'm not going to lie, I'm kind of a partial to Volkswagens, the buses and the Westphalias and the Beetles and the 411s and all them, The Super Beetle. In addition, he was given a small room in the basement of the Athabasca Hotel where he boarded for the rest of the summer. The basement, you say? In late July, the manager of the tour bus company called Dad in one day, and knowing of his previous term working in a Hamburg hotel, he asked him to polish up the black Buick limousine and report back here after lunch. I'm not really sure why experience working in a Hamburg hotel would make you more efficient and expert at polishing a limousine, but okay. Dad did as requested, and when he returned, a man from a Hollywood movie studio was present in the office, and the Hollywood man, "Hello, Mr. Hollywood man," asked Dad a few questions and engaged in polite conversation. Seemingly satisfied, the man advised Dad that he would be the personal chauffeur to none other than Marilyn Monroe for approximately 3 weeks. No background checks to see if he's some kind of crazy weirdo, just a little chit-chat. Some transient hobo that jumped off the train and rolled into town without a job. The movie was 20th Century Fox film River of No Return and also starred Robert Mitchum and Rory Calhoun. There's Robert Mitchum. Shut up or I'll punch you right in the keister. I'll give you a sock right in the jaw. I'm old school tough guys. A few days later, Dad reported for duty to pick up Marilyn Monroe from the Jasper Park Lodge in order to take her to the movie set. For 3 glorious weeks, my dad was the chauffeur for Marilyn Monroe during her time in Jasper. Huh. Okay. Dad would report to the hotel and pick her up, and noted she often wore Wayfair sunglasses with a headscarf. As she exited the hotel, the cameras flashed, people stared and gawked. Paparazzi, I guess, eh? Sure. However, once Marilyn was in the limousine, she was often nervous, usually quiet, and other than a few customary pleasantries exchanged with Dad, she kept silently to herself. She was all hopped up on the goofball pills or something, maybe. Poor tortured soul. Or maybe she'd been hitting the bottle, eh? God rest her. Dad remained at the movie set all day, and once filming had finished, he would take Marilyn back to the hotel. Dad recalled an occasion where Marilyn was not required for filming one day, and after supper, she called for Dad to pick her up. Marilyn asked Dad, "Just take me for a drive." Yeah, that's safe. I mean, obviously, everything worked out fine, but I mean, wow, really rolling the dice here, Marilyn. Nobody knows anything about this guy that randomly got off a train into town and started begging people for a job. Know what I'm saying? Realizing that Marilyn had been cooped up in the hotel all day, he decided to show her beautiful Malign Lake. It's a terrible name for a lake. Marilyn quietly sat back in the limousine and smoked a few cigarettes for a 45-minute drive. Dad observed that Marilyn rarely looked at the scenery and appeared deep in thought. Once at Malign Lake, she exited the limousine and walked a short distance to the water's edge, where she sat down on a log and chain smoked 4 cigarettes. Some shots here. Well, let's look at the photos. Okay, there's filming on the Athabasca River near Jasper. So they just let this limo driver hang out on set, I guess, and take a bunch of photos. All right. Movie set showing Robert Mitchum fixing a saddle. Rory Calhoun and Marilyn Monroe's double, unknown. Robert Mitchum saddling up the hoss. Movie scenes showing director Otto Preminger and other crew and actors. Ralph Shorts with Roy Calhoun and his wife Lita Barron. Ah, there you go. Dad stood at attention near the limousine and kept a careful eye as she sat on that log, chain smoking, apparently. The world's #1 female movie stars, nearby tourists suspiciously stared at Marilyn as they walked by her. After a few more minutes, Marilyn asked Dad to take her back to the hotel. Again, Dad noted once in the backseat, Marilyn was quiet, reserved, and appeared very nervous, frequently biting her fingernails. One other occasion Dad mentioned with a grin was the time Joe DiMaggio arrived in Jasper to visit Marilyn. Old Joltin' Joe, all the way from New York City. Was it New York or LA? I don't know. I don't know baseball. I'm a hockey guy, Canadian. Give me a break there, eh, buddy? Joe DiMaggio had been in Jasper for about one day, and Marilyn had summoned Dad to drive them to a party later. And where the hell are they going to a party out in the middle of nowhere in Jasper? Hubba hubba, by the way. When Dad pulled up to the front, Joe DiMaggio and a few other men were outside talking. 2 of the men familiar with Dad's limousine moved out of the way to allow Dad to park closer to the front step. Dad reported that Joe DiMaggio came over and poked his finger in Dad's shoulder and rudely demanded, "Who are you?" Dad quickly retorted, "I'm Ralph, Miss Monroe's personal chauffeur here in Jasper. Who are you?" Dad stated that Joe backed off quickly and appeared rather shocked at Dad's response. Us Canadians, eh? We don't know about American baseball players that much, eh? Of course, Dad knew who Joe DiMaggio was. Oh, well, of course. He just gave him some of his own medicine. Marilyn came out a few moments later, and Dad drove them to the party without any further commotion. Additionally, Dad mentioned that on a couple of occasions, Robert Mitchum asked Dad to take him out to the local watering hole I need a drink real bad. Take me to the bar, buddy. And Dad shared a few evening drinks with Robert Mitchum, as if they were old buddies. Oh, yeah, of course. Nobody likes drinking alone. Dad continued for the remainder of his term as Marilyn's chauffeur to and from the movie set and maintained the utmost professionalism in his job serving Marilyn. Out of respect for Marilyn, he did not take any pictures of her with his own camera, but he was given an 8x10 glossy photo and signed. Oh, yeah, of course. So he took pictures of everybody. I guess, so what he's saying is he didn't have any respect for Robert Mitchum? Because he's snapping away at Robert Mitchum, Roy Calhoun, and Lita Barron, but I respect Marilyn so much that I'm not going to take her picture. That's odd, but okay. To Ralph. What does it say? Warmest regards, Marilyn Monroe. What he remembered the most and about which he most frequently commented was the distinct difference between Marilyn's public appearances when the cameras, movie staff, and onlookers were present, and when she was in total privacy, such as in the backseat of his limousine. Dad was the first to agree that Marilyn was an ordinary woman like any other, who had been thrust in the powerful and glaring spotlight of stardom, and he understood that she must have been under a tremendous amount of pressure in her role. Dad was afforded a very rare glimpse of Marilyn Monroe as an ordinary person, away from the cameras and paparazzi, and he was proud that he felt trusted that Marilyn was comfortable enough to be her real self. She wasn't her real self. She was out of it, man. He said to herself, just blankly staring, smoking like a prisoner, or like somebody in rehab. Smoking like my granddaddy. He spoke very fondly of his 3-week term driving Marilyn. He often wondered if she ever thought of or remembered the natural beauty of Jasper, the mountains, turquoise blue lakes, and rivers, the Jasper Park Lodge, and a few of the people she met there the summer in '53. As much as I hate to say it, probably not. For the rest of his life, my dad treasured the memories of Jasper, the movie production, and his very fortunate experience of being chosen to be the chauffeur of Marilyn Monroe that summer long ago in Jasper. So, of course, there's, the museum, and they have an exhibit dedicated to Marilyn and whatnots. Unfortunately, right? Yeah, Norma Jean. Was it Norma Jean? Can't remember her last name. So what do you think in 100 years' time, in 150 years' time? Is somebody going to be looking at, the 150 years in the future? They're going to look at that version of the Wikipedia, and they're going to be reading official story of the great town of Jasper fire that destroyed 50% of the buildings. And Marilyn Monroe filmed a movie there once. But there's something about Jasper. There's something that they are destroying, and there's a reason for it. And like, as I mentioned earlier in the show, it seems like hardly any city or town has not already fallen into the crosshairs of these fire shenanigans. Or, or floods, but the fires are much more suspicious to me. A guy kind of tends to look a little bit more, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm at a loss of words here. Just look a little more deeply, a little bit more skeptically. That's what I was looking for. Into the fire narrative more than anything else. And there's, for some reason, Jasper was next on the list. And I think it's because, as mentioned, places like the town of Jasper are getting tougher and tougher to explain. Tougher and tougher to explain these big, huge, what they call old hotels and big structures in this secluded, hard to get at little mountain community. What's it doing here? Oh, there was some coal mining and there was some beautiful stuff here. So people started coming and they just never left. So now this town is here. Oh, and they filmed a movie here once. And then boom, fire. Yeah, Canmore. Well, I know there has been fires in Banff. But I'm not sure if I've got to kind of look into it, see if Banff has had a great fire. But, you know. Maggots in the box. Good to see you, my friend. Yeah, my limo driver's late this morning. It's all good. Good to see you, sir. They're going to have to come up with something. They're going to have to come up with something else. Because there's so many more people now looking at things like these fires, right? And, they're really scrutinizing it. And more and more people are just shaking their heads and going, come on, man. What are you trying to pull here? What are you trying to pull? It's, they're thumbing their nose and it's mockery, right? And they're just throwing it in our faces. It's a way of controlling the narrative, and it's a way of controlling us, and they control us through controlling the narrative. We got to just keep sifting through the BS, right? And unfortunately, it's just like trying to pick nat shit out of pepper. But when I see beauty, natural beauty like that being destroyed or brutalized, it's not pleasant.
Well, sir, I don't like it.
So there you go. With that, I think I'm getting ready to wind this thing down here for the evening, just past 6:30 p.m. local time, mountain time here in Calgary. So once again, thank you very much for shooting in and joining me here. New West Reset Live, episode 76, watching real-time Jasper destruction. And we looked a little bit into the official story of the founding of Jasper. Some of the more colorful highlights. Of course, the fur trading outpost, the Mounties, and the railroad. Always, you know how it is. So as a reminder, coming up here as we move into the summer, got a road trip planned heading up to Edmonton. Speaking of sort of north central Alberta, we'll be heading up to Edmonton. That will be in September. As we get closer, I will keep you informed as to when exactly, what day, and so on. I'll be up there in September. So if you live up in the Edmonton area and want to meet up with a feller, I'm going to be mostly checking out in and around, speaking of Jasper Avenue, and, other close by areas, but definitely be doing some boots on the ground while I'm up there for the day, checking out the Hotel McDonald and some of my old stomping grounds, just sort of south of 100th Street downtown, close to the legislature grounds, which of course I'm going to be checking out. Can't miss that. So yeah, you can reach me on the channel. Again, links below for how you can get a hold of a guy, or email and so on, if you're up in that area. Cousin Vinny and I are also trying to plan a road trip if we can, sometime before the summer lets out. We've already gotten together to head back to Heritage Park. So over the next couple of weeks, look for uploads of some footage that I filmed when we went back to Heritage Park this summer to shoot some stuff and visit some things and check out some whatnot up there that we missed last summer. So look for some footage from the old railroad museum up there, the car museum, the blacksmith shop. They got an old paddle boat on the reservoir there. So, old Frankie took a ride on the paddle boat. Toot toot. Still trying to hammer out a time, if you'll pardon the pun, with a Freemason co-worker of mine. He wants to give me a tour of some of the local buildings that the Freemasons built here in Calgary. Many of these buildings we've already looked at on the channel in the past on Boots on the Ground, but I thought it would be very neat and very interesting for this co-worker of mine who's a Freemason, quite high up actually here in Alberta, to give that perspective so we can all kind of scrutinize that a little bit. So look for that, as well as all kinds of other wacky stuff. And again, as a reminder, this is the final live for Friday. Moving forward, we're flipping the show to Sunday. Just gives me more consistent time. I don't have to start as late on Sundays because I don't work Sundays. Friday, my schedule's all up and down all over the place. I might have the day off. I might work the evening shift, the morning shift. You just never know. So Friday will be Boots on the Ground. Wednesday stays your midweek vintage footage video. And then Sunday live stream. So again, as mentioned, links for everything in the box below, as well as my location map, a fella's PayPal, BitChute, MeWe, and of course, Rumble. So thank you to everybody on YouTube and Rumble for joining me here. Thanks to everybody in the box for kicking off your weekend here with yours truly. I hope you're having a great Friday or perhaps Saturday, as the case may be. Hopefully you're not surrounded by flaming walls of fire and smoke. And yes, Godspeed to everyone who is directly affected by this stuff, because it is scary as hell. No matter what they tell us the narrative is for how these things start, and no matter what we may agree or disagree on in terms of the official story of these forest fires and wildfires, the fact of the matter is, real people their lives are being affected. So be careful out there. Again, thank you very much for joining me, and that is going to seal the deal here tonight for Frankie, New West Reset Live. So until the next one, take care out there, everybody. Have yourselves a good one, and we'll see you again real soon, all right? Thanks a lot, everyone. Cheers. Don't forget all the things, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
It's a mystery! It's a mystery wrapped in a riddle inside an enigma!